Kelly Long gives us a cushion. Excellent. Good. All right. So this is the April 22nd, 2021. Happy Earth Day, everyone. Board meeting, CSS Workforce Board Directors. We have from the board, we have Bruce Boughton, Jack Wheeler, Margaret Lawrence, AJ Kircher, Stacy Carollo, Chris Sharkey, Tim Driscoll, Ernie Hartman, Jamie Johnson, Jeannie Eschbeck, Joe Roman, Kelly Long, Liz Stamp, Nancy Kirby, and I think I just had one pop in here at the last second. From the board present, so we have quorum, Jack. It is yours. Well, let me do the guests quick. There's from the staff, there's myself. We have Keith Guthrie also on the staff. We have Leslie Spurgeon. She will be, she's part of the Insero audit team for the audit presentation. We also have Phyllis Ballier on the staff, Rayanne Widmer-Mason from the staff, Rita King, who is also an auditor from Insero as part of that team, Sally Rasu, partner agency ProAction, and Shelley Madden, operator. So we have quite a full house on today. Jack, I will give you the floor and I will share my screen.
Okay, thank you, and thanks everyone for joining. Conflict of interest disclosure, as always, if an item comes up that you or your organization have a direct conflict with, please note that and recuse yourself. Dan, if we could approve the meeting minutes first and then go into the audit. So everyone, the meeting minutes from December were attached by Mel. So any questions or concerns? If not, could I get a motion to approve, please?
Jamie, I'll move it.
Joe Roman, second.
Okay, motion second. Any questions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, Dan, we are adding the audit committee report.
Yep. So I apologize. There was a miscommunication with staff at the end of this single audit meeting yesterday, and so they were not sent out. Mel will be sending them momentarily. I will share on the screen so that everyone can see the audit report. And Nancy Kirby is the chair of the audit committee. And we have two members of the audit company on the call today. I don't know, Nancy, do you want to walk through and have Rita and Leslie just field questions?
That would. I'm getting quite an echo. Am I still? Can you still hear me? Okay.
Yep, but I hear a little bit of your echo coming through too.
All right. I'm not sure what to do. Maybe if either or Leslie try, maybe they won't have so much of an echo.
Yeah, if you're a guest or a board member, if you could please mute if you're not speaking, it might be that.
Okay. All right. So the good news is the audit went well. Our auditors told us in the audit committee that it was the smoothest audit to date, that all the information that they requested was provided quickly and swiftly. And so the good news is that overall the audit went well, and there are no audit findings. So we have the continuing cash reconciliation issue with state. So with that, I like to ask Leslie to go over the communications with governance, because I think that's an important part of the audit, and then we can take a quicker review of the numbers.
Okay, well, thank you, Nancy. And yeah, I echo what you said about how smoothly the audit went. Many thanks to Patty. She worked she worked very hard to get us all the information. We had a lot of it before we even started our field work. So we're very grateful for that and appreciate that. So the communication letter that you see in front of you is the one that we do every year. It's our communication at the end at the conclusion of the audit. And I'll just briefly go through the different aspects of the letter. If you've been through the audit before, you've seen this. It hasn't really changed a whole lot. The first item there has to do with accounting practices. This is a little bit different from last year in that there were two, not just one, but two accounting pronouncements that were implemented this year. And they have to do with revenue recognition. They did not change really what you've been doing all along, which for your grants, you recognize the revenue for grants as you expend or incur qualifying expenditures under the grant. And then for contracts, you recognize revenue as you perform the services under the contract. So that didn't change. There are accounting estimates in the financial statements. If you could go back up a little bit, Dan, thank you. And as you can see there, they are the allocation of functional expenses, which is primarily based on staff time. And also, if I can see, compensated absences, which is based on hourly rates times the leave balances. Then the financial statements, there are many disclosures, but probably the most important ones for you are the disclosure of the grants receivable and unearned grant revenue. So as you spend money and you're waiting for reimbursement, you have your grants receivable, and then money that you get in advance that you haven't earned yet is reported as a liability. And so this footnotes just disclose the components of those receivables and unearned revenue. And also net assets, the component of net assets is an important disclosure as well. There were no difficulties encountered in performing the audit. We do have corrected misstatements. And if you want to go down, Dan, to that schedule, every year we do an adjustment for the grant receivables, recording those receivables and unearned grant revenue. And we also true up the compensated absences liability. So we're reporting that here to you as audit adjustments. We did talk during the audit committee meeting about having Patty do those adjustments before the audit. And we talked about working with her to help her go through that process. So hopefully we can get rid of this this schedule in next year's audit. Now I'm going to ask you to go back up, Dan. Sorry about that. So we had no disagreements with management. Management representations is just informing you that there is a letter that management signs at the conclusion of the audit. And this letter just tells us that management has provided us all the information we need, that you own all your assets, that there aren't any contingent liabilities or anything that would affect our audit opinion that have not been disclosed to us. Management consultations with other accountants is really talking about opinion shopping, so there wasn't anything like that. And there weren't any other audit findings or issues to communicate to you. And this paragraph under other matters just talks about our responsibility for the schedule of expenditures of federal awards, which is supplementary information to the basic financial statements. And we audit it in relation to the financial statements themselves. So that's the communication letter. Are there any questions about that or the audit process? Okay. So then you can go to the management comment letter, Dan, if you would. So the management comment letter, we had no findings, as Nancy said. We did have just a discussion item for an upcoming standard that will be effective next year in 2022. And that has to do with leases. So with the new standard on leases, you will recognize an asset and a corresponding liability for operating leases. If any of you are familiar with capital leases, that's how you've been doing that all along. So now operating leases, like your office rent, for instance, you'll see two balance sheet items for the leases. And that's all we had in the comment letter. So now we can go to the financial report itself. Nancy, would you like us to go through that? Or would
Yes, that would be good.
Okay, I'm going to
thank
turn it over. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Rita. She's going to walk us through the statements.
Thank you. So at the top of the report, you just have your cover page. Then we have the table of contents. It just describes everything that's in the report. Then we come to the independent auditor's report letter. This just states the management's responsibilities and the auditor's responsibilities. This opinion paragraph on the second page is what everyone really cares about. This is where we state that it's a clean, unmodified opinion. Again, we have other matters related to the CFA, and then other reporting required by government auditing standards. So then we actually get into the statements. So your first statement is your statement of financial position or your balance sheet. Total assets increased $234,000 from the prior year, and that's really just a lot of it is due to receiving the PPP loan and receiving more grants, like getting awarded more grants during the year. Your total liabilities increased approximately $196,000. And again, that's due to that PPP refundable advance, along with the increase in unearned grant revenue that goes with the receivable. And the combination of those, you have an increase in your total net assets of $39,000, which is good.
Rita, if I could jump in for a moment.
Yep.
Just so the board knows that the advanced position of the PPP loan was as of June 30th. And since then, roughly another, from what I understand, another 100,000 has been expended on expenses that are qualified for forgiveness. So we will have a small amount that we will need to pay back, but of course that's a very favorable loan. So it's all very positive. Thank you.
And we just did get the final thing to close out yesterday, Nancy. So we'll have final calculations in the next week or two.
Great.
So the next statement is the statement of activities. So this is your revenue and expenses. Your grant income, you can tell, increased significantly, and that really is just due to the dislocated WIA workers and the Trade and Economic Transition National Dislocated Worker Grant. And then again, that Paycheck Protection Program, that is the amount that was expended as of June 30th. So your in total revenue increased $373,000. Your total expenses also increased approximately $307,000. And again, you're receiving those grants, you have to have the expenses to match them. Otherwise, you can't recognize the revenue. And we'll take another look at, on the next page is a statement of functional expenses, which actually breaks down the expenses. And just a couple.
Once again, Rita, if I could jump in a moment. That income comes from the PPP. So it's actually giving us an opportunity to build back a little bit of net asset or fund balance, fortunately, after all challenge the last few years. So thank you, Rita.
So just to look at a couple areas that did increase, your salaries increased approximately $42,000. from 2019, really just due to an increase in rates during the year. Your contracted training services increased about 112,000. And that's really just due to an increase in training during the year and having more active participants. Tuition and incidentals increased approximately 104,000 due to more participants participating in it and an increase in rates. And the on-the-job training increased approximately 48,000 due to more companies actually offering the program and taking advantage of it and more participation. And then the next page is the 2019 functional expenses, so you can see them and compare them. And then the final statement is statement of cash flows, which everything is considered operating activity. So this is really just your changes from your balance sheet to match out to your cash. And then we get into the footnotes. So note 1 is standard. It doesn't change much year to year. It just describes the significant accounting policies for the entity. The only thing that really would change in this is with the new pronouncements. And towards the end of this footnote, it does mention all the new pronouncements that we did implement regarding the revenue. And then if you want to keep scrolling. So here's the new accounting pronouncements that were mentioned in the communication letter. Just have them again. So note 2 is your operating lease, which is the lease of your office space. Note 3 is the pension plan. So it just gives the amounts that the expenses for the 19 and 2020 year. And note 4 and 5 go together. This is the grants receivable and unearned grant revenue. That corrected misstatement to adjust. This is where we get it from. So this is the breakdown of the receivable and unearned revenue, so you can see what is what. Note 6 is just a description on the payroll protection program and the figures. Note 7, disallowed costs. That's a standard language because there's always a chance for small immaterial disallowed costs. I have to cover bases.
But there weren't any. So I just
No,
want to be
this year,
very
no.
clear with everybody this year, because I'm quite happy with the fact that we had no disallowed costs of not even immaterial ones this year.
Nope. Note 8 is our compensated absences. And then note 10 is the liquidity and availability of resources. So you kind of have to take this, but then also look at your current liabilities to get the true of what you really have available, which all your liabilities are current.
So it's basically your net asset is what you have as far as working capital.
Note 11 is your net assets, and it describes that you went from a deficit to a positive. And then note 12, their economic uncertainty due to COVID-19. It's the same exact footnote that was in last year's report, and it will continue to be in the reports here on out. And then we get to a couple more independent auditors report on internal controls. And this describes a deficiency in internal control, a significant deficiency in material weakness, which there were none related to the audit. And then we have another independent auditors. So the next letters, yep, keep scrolling. The next one is the independent auditors report over the compliance required by uniform guidance. So this is related to the single audit and the CFA. Again, like the other letters, it describes management's responsibility, auditor's responsibility. It gives the opinion on each major federal program. Again, unmodified clean opinions. And the second page of this letter does describe the deficiency of internal control over compliance and a significant deficiency in material weakness. this is where that ongoing finding is. We do have a deficiency in internal control that we deem to be significant. And
I'm
that's
trying to find
on the schedule of findings and questions costs, which if you go down, yep. So it's right here, ongoing.
So I will tell you that we were notified, just Nancy, so you and the board know, and Rita and Leslie, you know as well. We were notified that our fiscal auditor from the state, SACNA, our photo auditor, was given permission yesterday afternoon as well to spend some time off of UI claim filing and back into doing her job. And so she is going to focus on this. However, because she has effectively been pulled off of her normal job, she is having to go back to January of 2020 and will be working and coming forward from that point. So that is where we're at on this, on the status of this one is we're hoping to get caught up. Well, I don't know how long it'll take at this point because we're a year and a half behind again on these things. So yeah,
That's great.
but that's
Great.
the status.
That's the report.
Any questions or?
Thank you, Leslie and Rita. So the audit committee is recommending that the board accept and approve this audit.
This is Jeannie. I'll make a motion that the board accept this audit.
AJ second.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to Nancy and the auditors. Any questions for folks? We have, obviously time, and this is very important. So please, bring about any questions. Hearing none, then we have motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you, you too. So I apologize that we had a miscommunication on staff and we weren't able to get those copies out to you ahead of time. So I apologize for that. Mel will watch your emails. Mel will be getting those out so that everyone has those copies. And thank you, Nancy and Drew, although I don't think Drew made it this morning, for squeezing in last minute and struggling with us to find a time to have our review committee. I appreciate that. So we could close that loop. So I think we're back at board chair report.
Okay. First item is board membership for this year. There's a note that we need a private sector. Do we just need one, Dan?
Well, so here's where we're at. We as you know, in the last couple of meetings, we've had two, one for Schuyler and one for Chemung. In Schuyler County, the scoped board has recommended, and I've met and had conversations with Ashley Kalizzi. She's the executive director of human resources at Schuyler Hospital. She is interested in joining us. So, and we've kind of vetted her through, and Judy's kind of worked through the Schuyler County system. She's ready. We'd be great to have a motion to kind of bring her onto the board, and then at the next board meeting, she will be here and participating, and that will close the Schuyler one. On the Chemung County opening that we have, I'm actually meeting later today with Lindsay Mills from Mills Electric. Thank you, Ernie, for that connection. Who's interested in talking about a Chemung County placement to fill that gap. So assuming that conversation goes well, I'll be reaching out to Joe Roman and the Chemung County folks to make sure we're all clear on that end. And then the next board meeting, we'll be able to hopefully bring on Lindsay Mills. And with Stacy Carollo joining to fill the retirement on the Department of Labor, believe it or not, we will be, and I know I hate to say this because I'm going to curse myself, but we will be fully stacked on the board again. So that's where we're at. So I'd love to get a motion today to accept Ashley Kalizzi to fill the Schuyler County position. The term, she's finishing up the term ending 12/31 of 21. And then she'll start her own bright and shiny 3-year term. And then next meeting, hopefully we'll be able to fill the other one.
Okay. Thanks very much. A good update. So motion to appoint Ashley Kalizzi.
So moved, Jack.
This is Jeannie. I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Motion and second. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you all. Dan, the March 2021 budget.
All right, so this is our budget. I'm going to try and blow this up. Oh, I think that's too big. So I'm trying to get the spacing here, make this as big as I can so everyone can see it. There we go. All right. So this is our expenditures through the end of March, which represents for us 75% of the way through the year. So again, what we're going to look at, this is our approved budget. This is our kind of internal minimum expenditure goals. This is our cash accrued expenditures. So this is money that's either out the door or we've got a check cut for it. And this is the obligation line, and it includes obligations. So future things like the remaining pieces of contracts and stuff would be there. So this, looking at the different subcategories, personnel, we budgeted about 761. We'd hope to spend about 609 in this particular item. Looking at our expenditures, including our obligations through the end of the year, we're at about 63% on 75% of the year. So we are going to come in a touch under budget here. So I think the 609 is actually a pretty good number. But as I've been saying the last couple of board reports, you see the gap between these two numbers right here, the 66 and the 55. You see that closing. That is how you can see the timing of our benefit packages and things kicking in this last 6 months of the year. So we're progressing well there. Looking at the operating expense category, this is system-wide and administrative. We are expecting to be a touch over actually on our rent budget. Somehow Patty and I buggered up on our calculations. So we are projecting to be a little bit over there. So we can make, I think, a minor adjustment with our closing and accepting of the June budget to bring that into reconciliation. Everything else looks pretty good. We did have, we are way over here on staff training and development. We had some great opportunities to train staff on diversity and inclusion topics. And those bills have come in, and we did a pretty massive training across both ours and our contractors to that. So I saw that money well worth spending. And so we did go over the budget on that. So I don't know if the board will want to recognize and with the budget announcement or close that at the end of the year. But that is an area where it was just too good of an opportunity to miss. Postage is over, looks like 29%, but the reality is it's such a small number, it's $85. So I don't see a big deal there. We're closing in real nicely and projecting to close out nicely on supplies. Insurance, we've basically paid all of our insurances through the year, and everything else is coming into alignment. Overall, we're about 78%, projecting about 78% expenditure, and we're 75% of the way through the year. So I think we're in real good shape on this subcategory. One-stop expenses. You see, it looks like the Hornell and Elmira centers are coming over. That does include some obligations here around rent and things like that. So I think the obligations won't be realized, and I think we'll come in where we need to be on those two. And the others we're projecting to come in a little bit light. So all in all, we're going to be in pretty good shape on this line, and we may actually have a little bit of money here that we dump down into program expenditures, which is our fourth category. We have completed our youth NIATEP training for the year, so this number is solid. Work experiences, we are pushing really hard on work experiences. We do have a really cool opportunity right now, potentially with Hardinge, to do some internship opportunities over in that with that sector, so that may help. But otherwise, I will say our emerging workforce, our youth team is very busy trying to push these out the door and meet their expenditure goals. Contracted services is primarily our operators in the career centers, and we're projecting coming in nicely there. OJT and customized, we'll see another report on that, but we're right at this point, we are we've obligated 237, roughly speaking, thousand of our 240. So it looks like we're basically overspent But when you see the report, you'll see that by the time we close out with PPPs and things of that nature, we'll actually some of our contracts won't go to full dollar amount. So we are still pushing on OJT and customized. Supported services continues to grow. I'm very excited that the Career Center staff are taking advantage of that. Transportation has gone up a smidge from the last time, but we're not seeing a lot of transportation needs out there with our staff. They're still doing a lot of remote learning. And so that's really shaved our obligations there. The tuition and incidentals, the ITA line, last meeting we had bumped, or 2 meetings ago, we'd bumped that up to about 190,000+ in there. At this point, we've obligated about 133. So the ITA review committee will continue to be pushing these things. We'd love to see them spend at least, I mean, a minimum of 20 or 30 more thousand, but quite honestly, they need to probably obligate 40, 50, 60,000 between now and the end of the year, because once FAFSA and all those things come in, remember, we don't always pay out those tuitions. So we obligate a full tuition for someone to go, and then when their financial aid package comes in, oftentimes we find out with Pell Grants and things like that we don't have to pay quite as much. So we have to intentionally overshoot there. But we're looking at about 85% of a goal, with 75% for that subcategory. A little bit misleading because of the contracts and stuff. Net. So if you look big picture, our entire budget, we're 75% of the way through the year. We spent 76, or projecting about 76% of our goal. At the end of the year, remember, and this is where a lot of staff, particularly Patty and myself and the program lead, we will be looking at the 80% expenditure goal. So remember, and it's not in entirety, it's by the individual category. So right now we are teetering on the edge of expenditures, but I think we're in pretty good shape. Big picture, small picture. We are spending a tremendous amount of our adult funds still, even with the number of dislocated workers that are out there. So we will be needing to, and you'll see at the next board meeting, a request to transfer some of our dislocated dollars into our adult pool to kind of balance things out. Our admin is going well. Our youth funds, I will tell you, the youth team is doing a very heavy lift to spend off monies. I'm if there's one area that I'm concerned that we may not hit all of our expenditures, it's this particular program. And it won't be because of a lack of trying on their part. It's just the sheer volume of what we're doing, combined with the fact that it is very hard to get folks off the sidelines right now and into the workforce. And it's even harder to get a disengaged young person off the sidelines who's maybe never been in the workforce before, in a meaningful way anyways, and get them motivated. So all in all, I think 80% is still a very good number. Youth program will struggle. I will also say that at the state level, the state is contemplating, New York State is contemplating. So one of the realities of our funding is when the federal government issues WIOA funds, those funds have to be spent within 3 years at the state level. So the state gets that money, they give us 2 years to spend our piece after they take their cut. And that third year, the state traditionally kind of vacuums up any excess and spends it off in that third year. The state is required after 2 years to have a 70% expenditure goal, not an 80%, or no, after first year, sorry, 70% versus 80%. The state is contemplating giving some flexibility to the local areas to move it from an 80% expenditure down to a 75, or maybe all the way to a 70%. So if that happens, that will relieve a lot of pressure, particularly on the youth program. But at this point, because we've not heard that for sure, we still have to go out full bore on this to try and hit our 80% expenditure goal. So that's our budget standing right now with all of our funding. Questions, Jack, clarifications?
Yeah, anyone questions for Dan or staff? If not, could I get a motion to approve, please?
I move we approve the budget. Tim Driscoll.
All right.
This is Margaret. I second.
Okay, motion second. Any questions, concerns? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you all. So executive committee reports, Jack, I've got the last 4 months worth of meeting minutes for you for
Yeah.
report.
We've attached those, and any sort of questions, concerns, over the months, obviously a lot of discussion, but happy to go through any of it if anyone has any questions or concerns. If not, a motion to approve, please.
So moved, Jack, Ernie.
Okay, thank you, Ernie.
Second, Chris?
Thank you, Chris. Any questions? Okay, if not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. All righty. Operations oversight?
So Judy at the last minute couldn't make the meeting this morning. However, they have been meeting diligently along as a group, and they've sent their information out. They are very active, and there's a lot of details in what they're doing. They've been doing a really intensive oversight, as they always do, about the youth program and enrollments and outcomes on that front. And you can see there on there, the youth program is moving along. They get into a lot of detail, so I will let you read their report out to you. Individuals with disabilities, we don't have anything to report on at this point, other than the group is looking at maybe designing some services specifically for this population moving forward. The operator report, I'm going to let Shelley share that in a little bit, and I won't get into it. You can see numbers there. They are also the point for quality assurance and performance, so you can see reports on how the QA oversight of the various programs is moving, and they are doing the RFP. So what I would say is they will need a motion. So they've been doing the committee as a whole on the RFP, and they are at the point where they will be getting ready to issue the RFP to the world. And what they've settled on is a 3-year RFP, the same as past years. That is the maximum we can do with WIOA. They don't even have it. I sent the notes. So they're probably going to have to go to executive committee, Jack, and give you exact dollar amounts and stuff like that. But where they're at, they are going to need permission from the board to release an RFP when it is complete. And we were kind of hoping to have a little bit of that conversation today. I'm trying to remember what we can release on that and what. So a 3-year RFP, it will be staggered. It'll be 3 1-year contracts stacked. They've kept that model. They still want to have a combined, operator and staff model. And it will be a modest increase in dollar amounts to reflect the overall increase of costs. I think that's about all I will say in this setting. And then Jack, on the executive committee meeting, we'll probably have an executive session to get into details, and then all right. We'll probably have to have that as a standing item and have an executive committee to talk about the dollar amounts that they're looking at, because I can't really release them for competitive reasons on a public comment forum.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I'm comfortable with that. Is the rest of the board comfortable with more information to come, executive review, and then obviously more information for the full board?
Yep. So when we do actually at the next board meeting, we'll probably have to we'll have an executive session. It'll be just the board members to go over contract terms so people can kind of understand what's being released and why. And the executive session will be limited to only those folks that would have no interest whatsoever in applying for those funds, because for competitive reasons, we can't get information out there. Yeah, so that'll be an executive session at the next board meeting.
Dan, this is Jeannie. Just a question on the timing of that. So at the next board meeting would be June, right?
Yep.
And that the RFPs would be released shortly after that, due back when?
Oh, Well, you're getting into details that I can't really release.
Okay,
at this
that's fine. That's fine.
Yep. Yeah, here's what I can comfortably say. The current contract that we have runs through September 23rd or 4th of this year.
That was really more my question. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for clarifying really what I was asking. Thanks.
So the new contract will be starting on, obviously the day after whatever the final is, 24th or 25th of this year, and running for another 3-year period potentially. So they'll have final reviews and approvals and all that fun stuff in time to do that. And I can comfortably say that, they will build in, and there is built into the timeline sometimes. So should a new operator be selected in the process, that there's enough overlap to kind of bridge that. That's about as much detail as I really can kind of comfortably feel like I'm sharing.
Okay.
But if you ever want to get into the nitty gritty and you really wanted to get into QA stuff, you should really talk to Judy or myself, and we'll get you on the operations and oversight committee. And I promise you'll get lots of details. Read their reports. You'll see the depth of their conversations. So I would love to have a motion to accept this operations and oversight report to the board.
I'll move it, Jamie.
Second, Margaret.
Motion second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. No action from the personnel committee. Anything to note from the 2 task forces?
So Ernie has a report on the ITAs.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. As you can see, the charts there's not a whole lot to report, just to say that we are getting some more diversity in the applications. In fact, we just approved an industrial maintenance training at the last ITA meeting, and CDLs are starting to pick up again. So as you look at the pie chart, I think we're getting pretty close to parity on the pie chart. We're still showing a large amount of Barber Cosmo. That's just hangover from previous applications. But the good news in that field is that everybody that has graduated from that training is employed and is doing well. So it wasn't money out the window, obviously. Everybody that was involved found employment in the field that they chose.
Okay. Thank you, Ernie. Anything else to note?
The only thing I would add would be that Ernie and his team will continue as carryover from my budget conversation. They're going to have a busy, hopefully anyways, a busy closeout for the rest of this program year between now and the end of June, to try and get these last $40, $50, $60,000 of ITA funds obligated. So
Get the checks ready, buddy.
Okay. All righty. Sounds good. Thank you. I-86, Jamie, really nothing to report, right?
Yeah, the only thing, Dan, I don't know if you want to mention some of the efforts that are underway with the folks from the I-86 committee on the marketing strategy that we've been talking about to re-engage the dislocated workforce.
Yeah, I can do that, or Chris, you can, or whichever. But so Chris, do you want to, or do you want me to?
You take it away, Dan.
Okay, so the I-86 work group is looking at, and they've been very actively involved in trying to understand why we're struggling to get folks off the sidelines and reattached to the workforce. And the I-86 work group had some funds that they put out and coordinated with a consultant who did a really pretty thorough review. They interviewed job seekers from multiple programs, multiple counties. They've interviewed staff that are in the direct service role from our team, from the BOCES team, from the SUNY CCC team. Thank you, BOCES and CCC, for letting your staff participate in those. They've also interviewed local area employers to kind of get their perspective, kind of the yin to the yang, if you will. And so they've got a set, and I think they're in the process of getting their official report out to their own work group, so I don't want to spoil it necessarily. But I think they've got some good working action plans around some messaging that is going to need to kind of be coordinated with the partners as a whole. And by partners, really, we're looking at the entire community on that, because it's not an easy issue, and it's not just us. And I'm pretty excited with the direction of where it's going. I don't think they're too far off the mark on this. From my own personal perspective, I think everything that we learned is good stuff, and it paints a very complicated picture, but certainly not one that can't be overcome, I don't think, with enough community lift on it. But anyways, so I'm looking forward to some actions on that. In the interim, we have taken some of the learning and we've kind of built that into our messaging. So if you look at some of the CSS messaging that we're doing on our social media and stuff like that, it's really kind of striving to that, nudging people and encouraging people, and do you need more, do you want more, and you can do this type of thing to overcome those inhibitions. So is that an accurate summary, Chris or Jamie, or am I off? Did I miss something?
Yeah, I think that was good, Dan. And the funding from this is coming from Three Rivers, and I think most of the people on this call may be aware that Susan Payne is going back to Florida, and we're in a search for a new president of Three Rivers. But this is one of the initiatives that Susan is going to continue to contract with us to help facilitate, to make sure it keeps, it keeps moving ahead while we're in this search process, so it doesn't slow the progress. And, I'm sure not surprising to anybody on this call, there is not one answer that we are getting in terms of why people are still on the sidelines. It's a whole combination of factors, including fear, childcare, unemployment benefits, you name it. So that's what we're trying to put together in some kind of way that will make it impactful. We'll, just a little teaser is, we are finding that folks are saying it is hard to find a place to go to get the information they need. So there is a ton of information out there, whether it's on Workforce website, BOCES, Corning Community College, but if there's a way we can make it easier to access, that's what we're going to be also looking at.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chris, Jamie, and Dan. Any other questions or concerns or items for either ITA or I-86? Okay. If not, move on to operator report, please.
Shelley?
Okay, good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. I had issues with the speaker, so I went on to the phone, so I wasn't quite sure if I would. I'm a little challenged when it comes to technology, so thank you. So I took a look at the first 3 months of this year, and as you see, we're starting to have some increase in activity, largely in part to we continue to provide, the counselors continue to provide the training services. To date, we've provided services to individuals participating in 190 individuals, 95 individuals participating in customized training, 46 in on-the-job training, 16 in the occupational skills training. We just added 3 more to training last month, 2 medical billing and coding and 1 CDL. And as you see below, again, the engagement seems to be more with the adults than the dislocated workers. So that continues to be, as we mentioned, and I'll towards the end here talk to you a little bit about some new efforts to engage dislocated workers. This moving on down with the services that we're providing in the Career Center. So our Department of Labor partner is, as you are probably aware, they are still 100% committed to UI. And devoting their time and effort there. So what you see here is that because they are not meeting with people face to face, although Stacy and I have had some conversations of late, they're starting to pick up a little bit more with their reemployment services, which is a positive thing. But the workplace staff continues to provide the services to the customers that are coming into the center. You see below that we have, they have provided about 68% of the services with our DOL partners chipping in when they have that opportunity to do it. And as Stacy and I talked yesterday, they're starting to chisel out some time each week to devote to reemployment. Also highlighted below are the center hours. So you see we are still open on a limited basis. What I did not capture on here, and I apologize, is that on Mondays and Wednesday evenings, we have extended hours until 7 p.m. in the Elmira Center, and Saturday hours from 10 to 2. In talking with the staff from the Elmira Center, it appears that there is a need to add some additional hours. So once we get our job fair out of the way, not in a negative way, but we were focusing a lot of efforts to bring people into the job fair. Phyllis and I are going to have some conversations about potentially extending some availability to the customers in the Elmira Center. So also, as we creep down here a little bit, in addition to the services, the regular services that we provide to the WIOA customers, there's still a lot of activity that the workplace counselors are participating in. And here you'll see that they still are handling an overwhelming amount of phone calls for Department of Labor type calls, meaning unemployment insurance. I haven't gotten a response back. I need to talk with somebody about recertifying to the fraud claims. And now the additional piece we add to this is that a notification has gone out that some people may have been overpaid with their PUA, the pandemic monies, and they're looking to recoup that. So the phone lines continue to ring. But we do also, like I said, we are holding many virtual appointments, and we have that walk-in ability to accommodate customers. So down here under noteworthy, I mentioned about the dislocated workers. So we've taken on a little different approach. One of the workplace counselors weekly is scouring the one-stop operating system to see what new registrants there are in the system, meaning how many have filed or been brought in through the New York State system. The numbers have been overwhelming and they continue to climb. What happens is John reaches out to these individuals and lets them know that we're here, we're open, attaches event calendars to let them know what's going on in the center, and then we'll continue to follow up with them periodically. What we have found is in talking with Department of Labor, we've seen in the last week there was a huge uptick in new registrations in the system. And what we're finding is that there are, with all the fraud claims, they're coming through as well. So one individual may be tied to 6 or 7 or 10 new registrations. So I'm working with Stacy and the counselor to maybe see if we can determine what is a viable registration. So we can focus our efforts on those that we may see some results from. One of the other initiatives we have right now is the partnership with Department of Labor and Coursera. The New York State has purchased licenses with Coursera to provide training, free training for our customers, our dislocated workers, or our customers that have been, separated from their job or unable to work because of COVID for some of those various reasons that Chris just mentioned. Maybe that they're home with their child while they're remote learning, things of that nature. There are numerous curated courses that the state has determined would be essential courses for our industry in our region. And they are not degree programs, and they are not, you do get certificates upon completion, but they're not, essentially not, state certifications in anything. But we're our plan is to use it perhaps with people have interest in training in certain areas that they may be a little uncertain about. They can take numerous courses with Coursera. A lot of correspondence has gone out to the same population I just mentioned. And at this point, we do have 6 enrollees. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but for a while we were getting crickets when we sent the emails out. So now what we've done is try to pursue some of those that we have seen. We have sent initial emails to and have seen that they have some active time within the one-stop database. We can see that they may have had a service or they have received a match. So we're trying to focus efforts and kind of, pursue some of those that have a little more activity to maybe entice them to take advantage of this wonderful opportunity. And I think, as I mentioned, very busy with the job fair. We've this month focused on information sessions on how to navigate the virtual job fair, identified computer access points so that those individuals who don't have access to computers at home or limited, internet access can use some computers in our career centers, as well as some of the libraries throughout the community, our communities, and just doing what we can to promote some participation with the job fair. And I think that's it.
One thing I'll add that Shelley didn't do, and it's just a data point that's too early to know what the meaning is of it yet, but the last week of March, we had 400 and, these are numbers off the top of my head, I don't have my exact email pulled up right here, but the last week of March, we had about 450 people as a new enrollment in the system show up. During this month of April so far, we have seen more new enrollments in the system than we'd seen for January, February, and March combined. So I'm not sure what that means. I don't know if it's a process or it's a data piece that's showing up because of recertifications. I don't know if we're beginning to see a flood of folks that are thinking it's time to re-engage. I don't know what that means yet. But there's big numbers that are starting to show up on what we can see. So Stacy, I'll just give you a heads up that we're gonna try and tap into you to figure out what's going on here. But I'm just letting the board know that it's kind of, I don't know if it's exciting. I don't know if it's scary. I don't know if it's just a phantom type of data thing that's popping in or not. But we're beginning to see some strange things show up. So
anything I can do.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thanks, Shelley.
Yes.
Any questions for Shelley or Dan or staff? Okay, thank you. If not, moving on, director report. Dan, the ETPO
Okay, we have
updates.
we'll go fairly quick through these little pieces here. ETPL, so eligible training provider list. We've had 3 requests. We have had a request from Corning Community College, their medical and billing coding program that they've put on. You can see the tuition cost is about $2,700 with 340 instructional hours. We've had Corning also submit their Applied Electronics for Manufacturing Assemblers course. And we are going to be reaching, Jeannie, just so you are aware, we're going to be kind of reaching out to figure out a little bit more and learn some more about this as to where it might fit on our demand occupation list. So we'll be following up with you or your team, whichever. And then we've had also a request by our New York Beauty and Barber Academy folks. The training, we've done a lot of business in the past with them, although currently barbering is put on hiatus. We're not approving any more ITAs. But what they have done is continue to update their eligible training provider list. So in the case of the Corning Community College programs, they are a very well-known, obviously, training provider. And I have, without hesitation, any hesitations at all about approving and putting them on our ETPL. And then we will line up where possible with our demand occupation. Just one on the New York Beauty and Barber Academy. Remember, they're updating it for the eligible training provider list. That does not mean they're eligible for our WIOA training in our area. It means that they're an eligible training provider list. So I think this is one of those instances where we should approve it and put it on our ETPL, because other areas, Tompkins County or Tioga County or other places, could be using them as a training provider and investing WIOA money. And I certainly wouldn't want to stand in the way of that happening, because they have done a good job in terms of the quality of their training. So we have 3 requests, 2 from Corning Community College, 1 from the New York Beauty and Barber, to be added to our eligible training provider list. Staff are unanimous in supporting all 3 of these applications. So we'd be looking for conversation and perhaps a motion from the board to accept.
Any questions for staff?
This is Jeannie. I just want to clarify why the medical coding is back on here. This is a program that we offer in conjunction with our Ed2Go online program, and they have recently upgraded this medical coding so that people who complete this have the option to complete 1 or 3 up to 3 national certifications. So that it's just it's an increased, I would say, more robust training than even the previous one.
Thank you, Jeannie.
So Jeannie, you should probably abstain from this vote then.
I will definitely abstain from this vote.
Okay. Any more questions? If not, could I get a motion to approve, please?
I move we approve. Tim Driscoll.
I'll second that, Kelly Long.
Okay. Motion and second. Thank you very much. Any questions or concerns? If not, all in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Carried.
And Jeannie abstains.
Thank you.
So the other item we have is our, and I'm going to shrink this so I can get a few more on here, our business services report. This is to give you an idea of the contracts we've written for OJTs and customized since July of this year. So there's quite a few here in the we're looking at the OJTs to start with. You see quite a lot of them, totaling about a little over $101,000 worth of OJTs written. You can see the companies. If you see them in red, that means we initiated the contract for that amount. However, the contract we're not going to end up paying out. In normal scenarios, that would mean that probably in the case of an OJT, the individual didn't stick. So they started the job and didn't stay. In this case, that is not the case. So what we're discovering, and I'm going to go down here to the bottom, contract not actualized, paycheck protection program. So if an individual is in an OJT and they are going through their training program and the company is claiming their wages during that OJT against the federal paycheck protection program, because those are federal dollars, we cannot bring in WIOA money on top of it, because that would be considered a form of double dipping on the part of that company. So the overall preponderance of our failure to completes in OJTs are because of paycheck protection programs. So we have had very, very few instances in which these OJTs have not stuck. So I don't want anyone to think that we had a massive failures here, because that's not the case. It's just us protecting to make sure there's not federal dipping in federal, or double dipping in federal funds. So to date, about 101,000 in OJTs. In customized training here. Boy, we got a lot of companies doing it and a lot of different topics. The big one here, so the Corning IDM plant, I think I mentioned this last board meeting. It looked like they canceled their contract, but they didn't, just because of timing. We reinstituted the same thing down here. So we didn't actually lose that. So we've a couple of smaller ones along the way we've not paid out because they changed the attendees or whatever to the grant, and we couldn't live up to it. But all in all, you can see we continue to write a lot of customized training contracts. Customized training contracts are almost, if you look on the far right here where it says adult, because they are currently employed, it's almost always adult funds on that front. What we're seeing, however, is companies are training their folks to do multiple jobs. They're going to have a much more flexible workforce on the other side of this. So rather than have 2 specialists in activity A and 2 specialists in activity B, like they had pre-COVID, what they're doing is they're cross-training, so that if the person doing activity A is not as busy, but activity B is ramping up, they can seamlessly shift those workers over there. So you see a lot of cross-training and moving around. So we're supporting that effort. And you also see some other cool things in here around Autodesks and some Excel, much needed Excel down at Hardage, precision measurements, etc. So all in all, bottom line, we've initiated just shy of $220,000 worth so far of new contracts this year, and we've had about 38,000 of them not complete, but the huge preponderance is right here in the Paycheck Protection Program. So we're seeing great success overall. I'm very pleased with that.
That's great. Okay, thank you. Any questions for Dan or staff on the business services? Okay.
The only
If
other
not,
thing
can I
would
get a
be-
motion to approve?
Yep, sorry, yes. I might delay.
So moved, AJ Kircher.
Do we have a second?
I'll second, Kelly.
Okay, thank you. Motion and second. Any other questions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Okay. Anything else, Dan?
I'd say before we go to adjourn, does anyone, I shared kind of where we were at with job fair numbers. I will tell you we're up at 118, I think it is as of today. We got a couple of stragglers still out there. We may hit 120 employers participating by the time we're all said and done. We are, and if you've been following it on Facebook and our postings, our openings have been anywhere from 26, 7, 800 down to 2,000, and it seems to be bouncing around. And what we've got kind of going on in the platform is as employers come and go and the programmers do their magic to make sure there's no duplications, you see some bouncing around. But we'll have finals here in the very near future. But we hit a huge demand on employers. As of yesterday, we had a little over 250 and approaching 300 job seekers pre-registered. And right now we are putting a full-on press to get job seekers to the event. I know the Department of Labor is doing some mass mailings using their internal system. We've been doing some. College and BOCES are partnering on this. I'm sure they're reaching out to their folks as well. Yesterday, I sent out and asked the employers that are participating to kind of go on social media and start letting folks know that they're there and encouraging people to attend. We're putting a full court press on this. So far, we've looked at this and we've seen some other folks using this platform, and it looks. I mean, nothing is probably going to replace the excitement and whatever of a real live going to the Corning Community College gymnasium and seeing, 100 employers and 3,000 people. I mean, you can't recreate that. But the system and the platform that's out there is pretty darn good. So we're really hopeful that we'll get some numbers on here. But I don't know if there's any questions, comments, concerns, angst, anxiety. And I would ask that any board members, any of your agencies, please, if you can, in any way, shape, or form, encourage folks to get out to the job fair and pre-register. We've got access points in the community. We've got all sorts of workshops to prep you. We've got contact people that can help. So yeah, I'm mumbling at this point, but any questions or concerns on that? If not, Jack, then I am done.
Okay. Board members have anything to bring up? Okay, if not, motion to adjourn, please.
So moved. This is Margaret.
Second, Jeannie.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.